A shocker in the college basketball world as Dusty May, national champion head coach of Michigan, is gone. Is there a way Kansas could benefit from this?
You are Locked On Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Derek Johnson here. This is Locked On Jayhawks. Thanks for making it your first listen every day. And we are brought to you by Odoo. Great organizations win because operations matter. And that's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free at odoo.com/locked on. That is odoo.com/locked on. We're going to break down the latest with Dusty May leaving from Michigan to go to the NBA, what it could potentially mean for Kansas. Is there any way KU could snipe some of these good players from Michigan to be a final edition for KU? Also, finish up with some of the latest news with NBA draft week here and a little bit more. But let's just start here. The news of the day, shocking news, is Dusty May, the head coach of the defending national champion Michigan Wolverines, and somebody who, I mean, if you asked a lot of people who's the best coach in college basketball right now, I think most people would answer, if you're just saying like right now, not taking into account like history and like if you're taking into account everything they've accomplished, it'd be either Bill Self or Rick Pitino. If you're taking into account like if you just said who's right now, it probably the answer would have been either Dusty May or Danny Hurley at this point in time. And so he goes to take the Dallas Mavericks head coaching job, where he'll get to coach Cooper Flagg and Kyrie Irving and whoever they pick in the top 10 of the NBA draft. And this was going to be a slightly different show until Mike Boynton was announced as the interim head coach. There's also some talk and some thought that Boynton might be given the full head coaching job, not just the interim head coaching job, which I imagine will be the case for the year. Obviously, we're later in the game, and if they made a coaching change and went for somebody else, it would lead to a lot of probably roster influx, right? Now, I will say this, the last time a Michigan head coach did leave for the NBA was when John Beilein left for the Cleveland Cavaliers job, and that worked out pretty well for Kansas because Jalen Wilson was committed to Michigan at the time, ended up decommitting, comes to Kansas instead, ends up being a player who eventually will have his jersey in the rafters as a former first-team All-American and a former national champion. So worked out pretty well there. We'll see if they can get as fortunate from it on this standpoint, right? But a couple reasons that this has an impact for KU potentially, or at the very least could be a positive impact for KU is, I mean, for one, we've seen good college coaches go to the NBA and it just not work out, right? And sometimes that can be because, I don't know, it's different messaging, different people you're talking to. Sometimes it can just be a roster thing. Like at the end of the day, in college, you're able to recruit your guys. There's only so much recruiting you can do in the NBA. You can recruit the free agents, but at the end of the day, they're probably signing for more money. You're given what you're given, and you just hope it's good enough, you know? And so like Rick Pitino is one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history. Well, he flamed out in the NBA, right? John Calipari has been a super successful college basketball coach. He flamed out in the NBA. And I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here with Dusty May. He is set up for success because the Mavericks are willing to spend money in free agency. You have Cooper Flagg, who looked really, really good this past season, Kyrie Irving, and some other things. But theoretically, what if he does flame out and he's gone in 2 to 3 to 4 years, you know? And like, I would say if Bill Self were to last as many years as like if it perfectly lined up that he would let go from an NBA job and then Bill Self retired, that could work out for Kansas because in a world where he was still the head coach at Michigan, if Bill Self retires, there's no guarantee he takes the Kansas job. He might just say, hey, I'm having success at Michigan. Like the only job I'm leaving for is an NBA job. But if you get him now bouncing back from an NBA job, or what if he even flames out in 3 years? What if Bill Self is able to, he feels great, he coaches for another 4 or 5 years, and then Dusty May, wherever he bounces back from, he then uses that as a stepping stone job. So like in a weird way, this almost makes it gives you a better chance. Not if Bill Self is only one more year. If this is only the last year for Bill Self, then no, it doesn't. But if Bill Self can still coach for Kansas for 3 more years or so, then this actually maybe makes it a little better as long as he does flame out in the NBA. to be able to potentially have him as a hire down the road. Now, I think he's a really good coach. Like I said, I think he's set up for success. I don't think he's going to flame out there, but you never know. The NBA is fickle. It's hard, right? Does Mike Boynton become a candidate down the road? Like, obviously he's not right now, but if Mike Boynton has a lot of success at Michigan, would he become a candidate down the road for the KU job? I don't know. It's easy to say no right now because of the Oklahoma State tenure, but who knows? Again, if Self's coaching for 3-4 more years, which I don't know if that'll even happen, but if he does, what if Mike Boynton does completely turn around how you think of him, Beyond that, I think the personnel standpoint is the one that is probably most privy to right now and one that people want to know about what's going to happen here. So the transfer portal is closed, but when a head coach leaves their job from I think it's 5 days or so from when it's officially announced, the players have 15 days to enter into the portal or something like that. I don't know. There's a 15-day window and a 30-day window for something else. Anyway, KU's been waiting for the Malique Ewin eligibility ruling. The center from Arkansas is trying to get another year of college basketball, and he'd be a great, piece if they can make that happen. But the opportunity here of a really big school with some pieces that immediately, if they were to enter, would become the biggest names available in the portal for a Kansas team that, has a lot of openings left. And there's some other teams that have some openings left. You think like BYU and Kentucky, or money ready to spend if it does happen. Unfortunately, hiring internally and rehiring Mike Boynton, who is seen as somebody who, usually everything I've heard about Mike Boynton is he usually has pretty good relationships with his players, and that he was an assistant coach on a team that just won the national championship. I guess okay, so Trey McKinney, who was he might be a projected 2027 first round pick, really good player for Michigan this past year. He's expected to take another step forward this upcoming season for Michigan. He already tweeted out that he's not going anywhere. If you're a player who was just on the team that won the national title, wouldn't you want to stay on that same school, even if it's a different head coach, especially now that it's an internal hire? Because just think about it from the lifestyle standpoint. You're the big man on campus. When you walk around, when you go out to parties, when you are the guy. You get to celebrate your national championship that way, So I wouldn't think those guys like the Elliot Cadeaus of the world want to leave. It also, by hiring internally, lessens the potential pool of players that could be entering the portal, because think about it. If Michigan hires an external head coach, it's not just some of the Michigan guys could enter the portal. It's that school now could have players enter the portal. And then if they hire somebody, the next school could have players enter the portal. It could have led to a big ripple effect. Seems like this is going to avoid that. So the way I'm viewing it, if we're looking at names that, because again, I'm expecting all the guys who were on the team last year and won a title, at least the ones who were playing as a part of that, to just stay where they are, especially with Boynton back. I also would say that it doesn't really make sense for KU probably to go after LJ Kaysen and Jalen Reed. Both of them are nursing injuries to start the season and are probably going to miss time into the season. You're already dealing with that with Christian Reeves. I don't know if you want to deal with that for another guy that would potentially be in your rotation, right? I don't think it makes sense to add any of the young guys if they were to decommit. And again, I don't even know if all these guys might just stay with Michigan. But, Brandon McCoy is a really good recruit, but he didn't really even have Kansas on his finalist list, right? So I think if any of these enter the portal, you obviously jump all over them. And the names here are JP Estrella, who is the transfer from Tennessee, just came into Michigan this year. And there might be a little bit of a worry of how he would fit next to Dawes. We're gonna dive a little deeper on Estrella and Chom in our next segment, but Moustapha Chom would be the other one, where both these guys are transfers into the program, so that maybe don't feel all the loyalty of, oh, Mike Boynton is now the head coach. They might have been like, hey, I signed up to play for Dusty May, not Mike Boynton, and maybe they do decide to re-enter and see what's there. Then again, Michigan paid them a lot of money to be there, so they might just be like, I don't care, still around a lot of other good players. I'm still getting paid a lot of money. We're still going to probably be a pretty good team. One underrated one, if he were to enter the portal as well, would be Marcus Moeller, who is a 7'3" center who was battling testicular cancer. He's cancer free now, but he was playing in the Spanish junior league, where he's averaging like 12 points, 9 rebounds, over 3 stocks per game. But he didn't play this past year for Michigan. So anyway, let's break down more on Estrella and Sham in segment 2, just in case something does happen and Kansas gets another opportunity with either or both players. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. Workplace chaos can show up fast. That's where Indeed Sponsored Jobs comes in. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. Finding the right person can make all the difference, whether it's building a business or building a winning team. Think about how important adding Remy Martin was to KU for the 2022 title, right? You might not have known it over the course of the regular season, but you think of the Creighton game in the second round, you think of the Providence game, he's scoring 20 plus points in each of those. You think of the title game, some of the big moments and shots that he had. They don't win the title without Remy Martin, right? And sometimes that one addition can be the difference of you doing that, even if you have a really good team around it. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast now. Support our show by saying you heard about it on Indeed, about Indeed on Locked On Jayhawks. That is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. You can join the Everydayer Club where you can get the ad-free version of the show at lockedonjayhawks.supercast.com. So Dusty May leaves for the Dallas Mavericks head coaching job, and this opens up potential that any of their players could enter into the portal. Again, I'm under the belief that, like, if you just won the national title with Michigan, Mike Boynton is internally hired within, so you have familiarity, you just stick around and you stay at Michigan. So, Trey McKinney already tweeted out he's not going anywhere. I would imagine Elliot Cadeau ain't going anywhere. Like, he's a Michigan legend, being a Final Four MOP. Why would you mess with that, right? The guys who would make sense that if they did want to retest again and enter would have to be Moustapha Cham and JP Estrella. And the good news for Kansas with those is both of them are at positions of need, and both were guys that KU was at least interested to varying levels. It seemed like they were interested in both of them. Maybe the price tag was a little bit out of their range the first time. That becomes a bit of a problem, though, right? Because, first of all, these guys have already signed their NIL or their rev share deals with Michigan to this point. So would you be having to pay a buyout, or would the player have to pay a buyout to enter the portal at this point in time? Or is there an out? Is there a clause in there about Dusty May or, the head coach leaving that allows them to leave without paying a buyout? But the flip side of this is, like, there's a reason Michigan got them. It wasn't just Dusty May. Like, that was probably a big part of it, the program success. The money was another big reason why. And I don't think the money is going away of what was offered to them. So, like, realistically, are you able to back channel communication with the agent and be like, hey, we're willing to pay this? But if you're offering less than they're getting at the school, why would they leave? So you're going to almost have to back channel to the agent, hey, we can pay more. And based on the numbers that were floating around with, Cham and Estrella, that might be more than Kansas is comfortable with or has the ability to do, And I will say, the fact they're even going after Malique Ewin and trying to make this a thing and getting him another year of eligibility, it does tell me there's a little bit of money left over. And maybe if you can sell a donor on the idea that, like, hey, this is an extra opportunity we have to potentially get one of these guys, then you can do enough and raise enough funds to make something happen to at least poach one of them into the portal. That would be the ideal situation for KU. So I don't even know if either of those guys are going to enter, but let's be hopeful and say that either one, if not both, do enter. Who would you have more interest in if you're Bill Self, if you're Kansas? Here's the rub on Moustapha Cham. He is a 7'2", 250-pound center who started his career at UCF. And then he goes to Cincinnati for a year, and then he transfers to the Wolverines earlier this offseason. First career, talking 11.5 points per game, almost 7 rebounds, over 2 blocks per game on 51% from the floor, also 29% from 3, 65 at the foul line. Strong rim protector. You're talking 88th percentile in block rate this year after he was in the 96th percentile a year prior at UCF. And interestingly enough, he had below average defensive rebounding marks at UCF. He had excellent defensive rebounding marks at Cincinnati. He was in the 86th percentile in defensive rebound rate at Cincinnati. Now, the offensive game, not the most efficient in the world because you have to live with some mid-range shots that don't always go in. You have to live with some threes that, again, aren't the most efficient, but at least he can take them a little bit and stretch the floor. But he does have some offensive game. He's double-digit score twice now in Big 12 play. Now, the rub on JP Estrella, he is a 6'11", 240-pound forward/center. You can play him at the 4 or 5. And he was a key piece on, I guess he was a part of 3 straight Tennessee Elite Eight teams, but really didn't become a key piece till this season, where he averaged 10 points, 5.5 rebounds per game, shooting 60% from the floor. And the first thing that jumps off the page for Estrella is his incredible offensive rebounding. He was in the 99th percentile in offensive rebound rate this past season. And part of that is the Tennessee scheme. They ask you to do that, but he was elite at doing it, right? Also had a pretty solid post attack. He had good efficiency scoring on the block. He also has been part of some really strong defensive teams at Tennessee with Rick Barnes. Like, that is required of you to be able to play defense. Now, interestingly enough, the defensive rebounding has been more average, and the rim protection has not really been there. It's been below average to poor for Estrella, so it hasn't really been as much of that. But when you look at the advantages that one has over the other between those, right? Estrella, I think, is the more efficient and better offensive player, and I think Chom is the better defensive player, right? So Estrella sports the better field goal percentage, effective field goal percentage, and true shooting percentage. All of them are by like a handful of points. It's not just like by a percentage point or two. It's like by 5% plus. And then you look at it, and analytically, it kind of adds up to that too. Estrella is the more impactful offensive player, but also analytically, Chom is the more impactful defensive player. And the big reason why is Chom is somebody who can get you 2+ blocks per game, whereas Estrella is more of that, like, half a block per game. It was even lower than that this year for Tennessee, but obviously if you're up in the minutes a little bit, maybe it gets closer to, above a half, under 1, somewhere in that range. Now, Estrella is the better playmaker of the two. Neither are great at it, but if you're asking a big man to be able to pass a little bit and fling it to somebody else or work it out of a double team, I think Estrella more adept at doing just that. When you look at rebounding, Estrella's the better offensive rebounder. Chom's the better defensive rebounder. Overall, though, Chom actually has a better overall rebound rate, just slightly, but that's pretty neutral either way. So it kind of comes down to this. Would you rather have the offense or the defense? Now, in general, I've operated most in this offseason thinking, hey, Bill Self can cover the defense. Give me the offense, right? But it is enticing to get a big man who could come in and block a bunch of shots and still be able to stretch out and space the floor from 3 to allow Stokes to drive while he's spacing from 3. I think I slightly lean Estrella. Like, if you were able to work back channels to both agents and the money was the same and, you were able to get one to enter the portal and come to you, I lean Estrella. I'd be very happy with either one. The only reason I would lean Estrella is just because of not just the offense and the idea that, if you're playing Estrella next to Keanu Dawes, I would have concerns about the rim protection. That is fair. But what would be really elite? The rebounding. Dawes is an elite defensive rebounder. Estrella is an elite offensive rebounder. That would be a really fun pair to have both of those guys there, right? And then the versatility of Estrella, where you can play him at the 4 or 5, to where it allows you to do some different things with him. Like if you want to play Estrella next to Dawes, if you want to play Estrella next to Mbia or Reeves, if you want to play Dawes next to Mbia or Reeves, you can do more than with Chom, where it's just you're just playing Dawes next to, like, you're not going to play Chom next to Mbia. You know what I mean? At least I wouldn't think. I don't know. Maybe if you're playing a team with like 2 humongous guys inside and you just want to like cut off the inside, but most likely you're not, right? So I just think there's a little bit more you can do with Estrella. And at the end of the day, you'd be happy with either one. It would be a home run addition either way in a time of KU was looking for that one other piece, right? And it also gets complicated because the Malique Ewin thing. If it comes down to, hey, you can get one of these guys, but you have to leave Malique Ewin in the dust, you have to do it because you don't know what the eligibility is going to be for Ewin. You have to take what you know now. But we don't even know that these guys are going to enter the portal. So ideally they do for Kansas's sake, but we'll wait and see. And if they do, we'll break them down more with I think we actually already did deep dives on both players, but maybe we'll re-up some of that. All right, let's get into some of the latest news. NBA Draft Day is here. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent, it's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. Like I think of KU baseball this past season, right? Like KU baseball obviously had a lot of talent, but they didn't have all the 5 stars in the world. They had a bunch of really good JUCO players who were diamonds in the rough. They had a really good coaching staff to help them develop and scout. They had a really good man with a plan and Dan Fitzgerald and assistant coaches like John Coyne. But it also goes up to the athletic department, Travis Goff and the athletic department, believing in them, giving them opportunities and things and trying to build this indoor practice facility, right? It's the entire organization that makes something happen. And great organizations win because operations do matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Try it for free at odoo.com/locked on. That is odoo.com/locked on. Thanks again for joining us here on Locked on Jayhawks. It is NBA Draft Day. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, I guess if it's after, it's already happened. But Darryn Peterson, I think, seems like a lock to go in the top 3. I know there's been some Caleb Wilson. Could he emerge in the top 3? I don't think that's going to happen. Now, Peterson didn't want to be drafted or doesn't want to be drafted by the Jazz. I just don't think they're really going to care. Like Ace Bailey didn't want to be drafted by the Jazz. They said, we don't care. And they took him anyway. So I don't think it's going to matter there if that's what happens. And I'll just say this, like, I hope Peterson, I was hoping Peterson would go 1. I just thought it would look cool for KU and stuff. After Trae Young re-signed to that 4-year mega deal with the Wizards, I hope Peterson goes number 2 or, 3 or whatever. Because I don't want Peterson to be stuck in Trae Young's just dribbling the ball for 20 seconds and now I can just be a spot-up shooter the whole game. Like, I want to see him flourish. I want to see him just, like, go off in the NBA. That would be good for Kansas basketball recruiting down the road, right? And then from the Melvin Council and Tre White perspectives, I don't think either one gets drafted. Like, maybe in the late second round. Sometimes we'll see it's kind of like deals between teams and agents where they kind of agree, like, hey, if you take us in the draft, if you take us with pick, whatever, 56 you have or whatever, we'll agree to this deal with you. Or, I'm an agent you want to be in with, do me a favor here and I'll direct my guy you want on a 2-way contract to your team as opposed to this other team as an undrafted free agent or whatever. Like, sometimes there are deals that can happen. So maybe that happens. I haven't really seen either guy pop up in like the top 70 of like draft boards or anything like that. I think both will get shots, though. Obviously, they'll get opportunities in summer league. The big question is, can either get scooped up with a 2-way contract, right? Because if you get the 2-way contract, that would, at least give you a runway to make the team or have some real playing time in the NBA. So that'll be cool to see, because I hope both guys get an opportunity to do that with Melvin Council and Tre White. Last bit of news here. This comes from a former Jayhawk, which I didn't even realize was a current UCF Knight, and that's Dean Miller. Had no idea that he transferred to UCF. Obviously, he's out of eligibility, but he's trying to prevent that from happening. They were tweeted out by Ross Dellinger, another NCAA eligibility suit filed. Former Kansas and current UCF defensive end Dean Miller is seeking an additional year of eligibility, arguing that his JUCO season should not count. NCAA denied his waiver, potentially costing him $300,000, what he's set to earn at UCF. First of all, good for him for making that sort of money. Second of all, that's another one that kind of goes in line with, we've been talking about Malique Ewin for, can he get another year? I'd imagine Ewin he's got to be further ahead in the line, right, than Dean Miller, but maybe another court case to watch out for of what the precedent tells us for could Ewin get that another year? Could one of these other players get another year that could potentially make for another target for KU? All right, that'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe to the show. See you next time on LOJ.